President Donald Trump ordered a 75-day pause on enforcing a law that will effectively ban TikTok in the U.S., as it floated an idea of partnering with the app's Chinese owner, Xu. The executive order delayed implementation of the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, which took effect on January 19th and would prohibit the distribution and updating of TikTok in the U.S. But some of his plans, particularly around changing the definition of birthright citizenship, are likely to face significant hurdles, already have started facing significant hurdles.
And TikTok is largely young people. I guess I have a warm spot for TikTok that I didn't have originally. But, I went on TikTok. Essentially with TikTok, I have the right to either sell it or close it. And we'll make that determination. And we may have to get an approval from China, too. I'm not sure. But I'm sure they'll approve it. And if they don't approve it, it would be somewhat of a hostile act, I think.
So you're not guaranteeing that TikTok will be around after 90 days from today?
No, but it could very well be. It makes sense for it to be, because it's got tremendous value.
For more on this, let's speak with spokesman for Republicans overseas, Errol Morkoc. Errol, glad to have you join me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Trump is back in office. Slate of pardons about almost 1,500, both for those who committed offense and those who some think were just protesting. What do you make of the the pardon of Trump, even 14 committed sentences?
If you contrast that with President Biden, who pardoned his entire family and everybody who worked for him for all the crimes they've committed during their last 8 to 10 years, it's certainly a very different situation. We see the January 6th protesters as American heroes who were having a crowd action, letting their voice be heard. Their voice was co-opted by certain bad actors. Those people were not freed, people who did actual violence. But everybody else who was there, we want to turn a new page, bring them back to the fold. America doesn't hold its own people political hostage. That's not something that we should be proud of, and we're very thankful that all those young men and women, or actually not all young, are back home with their families tonight. They're American heroes, and we're happy to have them returned home. America doesn't hold its own people political.
Nancy has responded, as well as Chuck Schumer. Nancy says, this is an insult, outrageous insult to America's justice system. Chuck Schumer says, Donald Trump is ushering a golden age for people that break the law and attempt to overthrow the government.
I guess they should save those complaints for the Biden administration, who's pardoning all of their own family members for robbing the American country. Hunter Biden was pardoned for all crimes in the United States for 12 years. So Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer can cry all they want. Nancy Pelosi refused the order to put the National Guard in the situation, or on January 6th, and the result was an unhinged situation. No one cares what they think. We're the majority. We have the majority of the country. The majority of Americans agree with us, and we think the January 6th protesters are innocent, and so that's the way the country is going forward.
I'm sure you listened to the Vice President and House Speaker talk about this incident, where they said that for those who protested, you're allowed to protest in America, but for those who were violent and went against the law, there's no doubt they should be punished. I'm sure you heard that statement from the two.
And anybody who was violent or attacked, assaulted police officers was not granted a pardon. So that's an important distinction to make. That's a very, very serious difference. If you were violent and you were smashing windows and attacking police, you were not going to get a pardon. But if you were part of the thousands of Americans who walked into the Capitol chanting, protesting, waving flags, being respectful, yes, this was not the way things are supposed to be done, but it's a passionate moment. These were normal working class people who felt their country was being stolen from them. So there's a difference. We don't want to, there were people who did violence. There were people who were bad actors, malicious actors, and those people are not getting pardons. But the people who are getting pardons are all the people who were involved but did not throw a punch at a police officer. By the way, no police officers were killed by anybody on the J6 event. Police officers had heart attacks, they had strokes, but there was nobody who was actually murdered on that day, and that's an important distinction to make for your viewers.
Well, people have started reacting. He talked about, the immigration, sending back deportation of so many immigrants, and people have started reacting to that. An immigration group sues Trump over his order to end U.S. Well, this is actually on birthright citizenship. They filed a lawsuit in New Hampshire that was on Monday evening. What's your sense of what Trump is saying about the DEI, the birthright citizenship?
Well, with birthright citizenship, that's a very specific topic in America. We have a very special law that if you're passing through America, you could be on holiday, whatever reason you are, if you give birth in the United States, your child is an American citizen by default. Now that law has been on the books for a very long time, and it hasn't really been something that's been misused. It's actually been a pretty cool thing. It's this sort of randomizer for the national DNA. However, now it's become exploited and abused. So the idea that people can come across the border, have a baby, and then have that baby tie them to the United States. They use the term anchor baby. So effectively, this is a program that has been exploited and abused by open borders, far left people to try to abrogate the natural flow of things. Simply, Donald Trump is looking at birthright citizenship and probably saying, you can be, if you're a resident, if you're a legal resident in the United States, you could have a baby who's born here. Keep in mind, Vivek Ramaswamy, birthright citizenship. His parents were both legal residents and born in America, but they were legal residents. That's a big difference. I'm an immigrant to America. So when I look at what he talks about deportations, I'm from Turkey. I think of the 30,000 illegal Turkish guys who came across the border. And I think about the 30,000 guys back in Ankara and Istanbul who've filled out their paperwork, who've paid their dues, who are waiting in line, who are doing things the right way. And what I see is not a situation where we're rejecting immigrants, not at all. We want to have more legal immigrants. And when it comes to things like labor, it's a really crazy concept. You'll hear the Democrats say this, oh, but then the cost of food will go up, or the cost of this will go up. Well, that's the argument that they made during slavery. That's as though California and these other sanctuary states are effectively the Confederacy using cheap labor exploited from the Latin America in the United States. And that's not fair to the American working class whatsoever. Bernie Sanders used to be the biggest proponent of a closed border because a closed border protects your lowest quadrant of workers. Now, an open border, that is what we've had, and it's been a huge deleterious effect to the working class, as well as an unfair situation for the people back home who did things legally. And when it comes to birthright citizenship, just to circle all the way back, it's a system that we see being abused, and definitely it's going to be challenged in the courts. It's part of our digital makeup. But ultimately, we need to reform it so that you can't just be anybody and have a baby here that makes you an American. It creates a lot of exploitation, including on the very high end. Very wealthy people come from, for example, China and have babies in America just so they can do that. It's exploitation, and we would like to at least ameliorate it to the extent we can.
All right. All right. Just quickly I let you go, quickly, he talked about ending the war between Ukraine and Putin. But in his speech, he talked about ending it the first day he steps into office, but in his speech, he didn't say anything at all about Putin or Zelensky.
Yeah, I noticed that, and it stood out, and it's a glaring omission, and it points to me likely that there are behind the scenes discussions going on from his election all the way through this transition time and now to him being the president. Obviously, day one has come and gone, so the war still technically is going on. However, Joe Biden lost this war to Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin conquered the majority of his intended territories in the east of Ukraine under Joe Biden's watch. So now it's Donald Trump's job to come in here and try to make peace. And peace is going to require concessions. And we're going to have to concede the territory that our government foolishly lost to the Russian Federation. And so right now it's going to be a lot of negotiations. Zelensky has indicated that he's willing, obviously, to make concessions. Russia's not going to remove their troops back to the old borders. That's impossible. So I think you're going to have a very slow, drawn-out detente period where eventually we get a peace deal signed, because the legs of this war was the American war machine and the American bankers funding unlimited bombs to Ukraine. When the money stops, the peace talks start, and that's what's happening right now.
Thank you so much, Errol Morkoc, their spokesman for Republicans overseas. Thank you.